Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Bitter Pill, the show where we talk about bitter pills of truth that people don't want to swallow. And it's more of an episode-let today. I don't want to talk for very long, unlike the other day. Basically, what I want to do is just follow up on what I was talking about the other day, where I documented in extensive detail how progressive Democrats in Congress are not really doing much for us. They're saying nice things, making a lot of noises about what kinds of policies the United States should be pursuing, and then not really using their leverage to fight for those policies, or in some cases, particularly in terms of foreign policy or civil liberties, even you're really not doing anything at all or actively doing things that are harmful, such as supporting economic sanctions and wars. And of course, they have their backers in the left, or so-called left media. And I had a little debate with, well, not really a debate, but just exchange of tweets with my friend Misty on Twitter. So, Comrade Misty, who, if you haven't checked it out, has with her colleague Jesse Zerowell a great YouTube show called Facts on the Ground, tweeted this. She said, "Cenk is the king of clowns," referring to Cenk Uygur, who said earlier this morning, "The reason why progressives in Congress have no plan to pass $15 minimum wage is because any logical plan has them challenging their Democratic colleagues. They've been gaslit into thinking that's unforgivably rude." Well, I seriously doubt, as does Misty, that the progressives in Congress don't have a plan to pass a $15 minimum wage because they're too stupid to figure out that if they want to pass progressive legislation, they have to do something to try and fight for it. And in fact, as I played for you the other day, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez actually made a campaign ad, based on a video that she'd recorded with of a discussion with some folks earlier, where, basically she said, look, if we want to get anything done in Congress, we have to be willing to take risks, and risks being a one-term congressperson. And if you're willing to stick your neck out and go out on a limb, then you can get more done in one term, even if they boot you out at the end of that term, than most Congress people get done in 10 years. I don't remember exact words, but that's basically the gist of it. And as we talked about at great length the other day, or as I talked about, she hasn't acted that way since she's been in Congress. She hasn't pushed or fought very hard against the Democratic Party establishment, and neither have other members of the squad or other progressive Democrats in Congress, including Bernie Sanders. But they've got their core of supporters in the independent media who make excuses for them constantly. And Cenk is sort of doing that here. He's saying, well, they just don't, they're just easily duped or whatever. But I said to Misty, I don't know about Cenk being the king of clowns, and forwarded a tweet by David Doel, who tweeted this. Let me get to it here, sorry. The whole point of hashtag Force the Vote was to get Democrats to commit to introducing the Medicare For All bill, and 112 Democrats did just that. Hilarious to see many hashtag FTV supporters, by the way, I was one of them, not even realize what the aim of their strategy was. Laugh reaction. You should be happy. And then he forwarded retweeted a tweet from Pramila Jayapal, the person in the House of Representatives who has introduced the existing Medicare for All legislation, boasting about how basically she was reintroducing a slightly revised version of the same bill, which, like its predecessor, and like every other Medicare for All or single payer health care type bill that people have introduced into Congress over the last 20 years, is just going to simply sit there in a committee gathering dust and not be brought to the floor of the House for a vote or discussion. Now, you tell me, what do you think the point of a strategy called force the vote might be? Do you think that the point of a strategy called force the vote is to introduce a bill into a committee in Congress where it's just going to sit there and not be discussed or voted on by the full House of Representatives? Well, I'm sure that David Doel is a nice guy. Being Canadian, he'd probably share his brunch with us if we went to visit him there in Canada. But you decide: is he really this clueless that he doesn't know what force the vote means, and then he's saying it's hilarious that we don't know what it means? Or is he being paid by somebody to act this fucking dumb? Because, come on, we all know, if you followed the debate over force the vote and the movement for force the vote, you know that basically the gist of it was a strategy to, force the vote, to get progressive Democrats in Congress to pressure Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, into bringing the Medicare for All bill to the full House for a discussion and vote, which has never happened before in the entire history of legislation being introduced into Congress to pass Medicare for All. So, basically the idea was that there was only a small margin of Democrats only held the House by a small margin, having a small majority, and by virtue of their having only a small majority, that meant that whoever wanted to pressure the Speaker of the House, or candidates for Speaker of the House, to bring up legislation that they wanted to see introduced and voted on, they could withhold their vote for Speaker of the House, because Nancy Pelosi was up for re-election for Speaker of the House in early January, in order to pressure Nancy Pelosi to bring the Medicare for All bill to the floor of the House for a vote, which she had the power to do. So that's what the strategy actually was, David Doel. But I'm guessing you probably know that. So, and again, this is a strategy that is not new. Way back in the 1800s, proponents of the abolition of slavery used the force the vote strategy to try and get the Speaker of the House to introduce a bill into the full Congress for a vote to abolish slavery. And they didn't succeed at first, but eventually, after several tries over the years, and during the try that was successful, many iterations of bringing up somebody as a candidate for Speaker of the House and trying to pressure them to bring abolition of slavery to the floor of the House for vote, and then not succeeding, you finally they were able to get a candidate for Speaker of the House introduced who was willing to uh, allow a bill calling for the abolition of slavery to come to the full Congress, full House, for a vote. Um, and I think that despite being Canadian, David Doel most likely knows this, or maybe he is just clueless about American politics and thinks he has something to say anyway. But in any case, sorry, Misty, but I think that David wins the prize for Clown of the Week among progressive YouTube commentators. Okay, well, that's all I wanted to share with you today. I will see you with another episode shortly. Take care.